So we're out here today to replace a very deep 400-foot well pump that is bad. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you the journey along the way, how to test your well pump, stuff like that, to know that it's bad. It's going to be a big job. So the number one thing that you're going to need in order to tell if your well pump bad is a clamp style amp meter / electric meter. If you look up here, you got amps, and down here you got volts. And here we have our pressure switch that you can tell that people have been messing with. And then we have our breaker here. And then we also have another breaker on the side of the house that also feeds this sub panel. So what you're going to want to do, and depending on how bad your well pump is, it'll happen very fast. But you're going to want to turn your meter on to amps. And you have your single wires here. You cannot clamp it like this around the entirety of the wire. It won't work. You have to clamp it around one single individual wire, and it doesn't really matter which one it is. Now I'm going to flip this breaker on. We're going to see if the other one's still on. Now typically a normal deep set pump, you're going to get somewhere between 7 and 9 amps. Anything above that, then the pump is bad. Okay, so we got to go turn the other breaker on. Come over here, well house, 50 amp. Okay, so we're back in here. See if we can get some light on it. Get you the full picture. Ready to flip the switch. 84, 70, 21, boom, 0. So what happened is the pump instantaneously shorted itself out. So the motor inside of the pump is what's bad. It's amazing to me that the breaker's not tripping with it flipping to 80 some odd amps. It should be tripping that breaker, but it's just not. So it may not be a direct short to ground. It's just probably the pump has overheated itself and the motor has swollen up and the windings, and it's trying to rotate. It's just not doing it. So we have to pull the well pump out, and we're gonna head out to the well now. We actually drilled this well about 10, 12 years ago. It's right across from our shop, so it's only about a quarter mile away. And we actually drilled 2 wells for this lady. I believe that well was like 250, 350. It made high amounts of sodium, and it was hard to live with because it just flat out tastes like salt water. So we decided we were gonna go as far away as we could from that well on her property and drill her another well for free. It kind of behooved us because she was our neighbor, so we were trying to do something nice for her to where if anything bad ever happened at our shop, she was always kind of keeping an eye on it, would always give us a call if shady characters, you know, were sitting in our parking lot trying to steal some of our stuff. So we were trying to be good to our neighbor. And here we are now trying to pull the well pump back out. Now this is actually the 3rd well pump that's been in the well, and due to some bad life choices, she no longer owns the property, and the other well pump that was put in was actually a used well pump because she couldn't afford a new one, and there were 2 houses on the property. She was renting one of them, so they pulled the pump out last time. We just gave them all the stuff to do it and a used well pump. So it's just a crazy story. So you come back here and it's all grown up, it's nasty, and we brought a chainsaw and a weed whip and a lawnmower because the job is just that bad. So this is the jungle that we are working in, and the well is right there, as you can see. So it's had a decade of stuff growing up around it, and you can see the old well pump left there. So from my recommendations to anybody watching this video, don't ever let your well system get all grown up like this. Someone's got to work on it, and then if they do, they're going to charge you for site cleanup, and that's exactly what's about to happen. So I brought a lawnmower, I brought a weed whip, and I brought a chainsaw. So we're going to get to work on cleaning this out. All right, we got the area all cleaned out, looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and pop the well cover off, make sure we ain't got no snakes or black widows. Looks like we got a mouse living in there probably. He decided he was gonna take all that foam and build him a nest. You gotta make sure that these aren't bees, because sometimes the other day we ran into a bumblebee nest. and it took us about an hour to let them calm down. And we heard something humming, and we thought it was the pump, but it wasn't. It was the bumblebees. All right, so before we go ahead and pull this thing out, this is our pipe that goes down to our house. I don't like cutting it here because you would then have to bend this over to put an inline in. I would recommend cutting it on the vertical. That way you go ahead and you put your inline in, and then when you slip it back down, you just push it straight down and you're ready to go. Now this device here is our wheels. We're gonna ratchet strap that onto the side of the casing, and then we're gonna pull the well pump out with our lawnmower. I'm gonna show you all the whole process. Now, I know that most people won't have a device like this, but real simple tip. If you have a car rim that doesn't have a tire on it, you can take that car rim using the center hole, run your strap through it, run your strap around your casing, and ratchet strap that rim to it. And what you're gonna be doing, you're gonna look for that rim to be halfway up, and you're gonna use that nice curved part of the wheel to allow the pipe to drape across. Now you can pull it out like this with black roll pipe, but if your drop pipe going down the well is PVC, you cannot pull it out like this. You must pull it out either by hand, 21-foot sticks, or pull it out with a Schmiel crane. Bad mosquitoes. There you go. Thank you. Here, don't stand in front of that. Ah, on the face. Dude, they're everywhere.
Oh yeah. There were probably a bunch of them in that nest we kicked.
No, they just like this swampy area over here.
Does it burn?
It burns, man.
Yeah.
It's that deep.
Yeah, I don't know. Shit, I'd rather it burn than have like 3 bug bites on my nose.
Yeah. Come here. Grab this with your hands and pull it up about 2-3 feet and hold it. Okay. Don't need to be that high. We're just pulling our slip knot through it. Now we got that. That's good. All right, you can rest it back down. Okay. Now I'm gonna get the lawnmower. I'm gonna pull it here, and then we're gonna get a way to hook it to either the front or the back, and then we're gonna drag it on. You got the two. We've got our strap. We're gonna hook that to the ball on the back of the mower. Now I do not recommend using a pickup truck for this. I recommend using a lawnmower, a real small lawnmower, or like a golf cart, or a small ATV. You don't want to use something so big that if it were to hang and it hangs down in the well and you've got a big giant pickup truck pulling it out, you're gonna break something. This way with a mower, it'll actually stop the mower before it breaks anything. Okay, now if you notice, my helper here has a flashlight. What you're going to want to do, you're going to point the flashlight down the hole. That way you can tell 20 feet, 15 feet before the pump reaches the surface, and you can wave to the guy on the lawnmower and tell him to stop. That way you can pull the last little bit out by hand. This is by far the easiest method of removing a well pump. If it's deeper than 100 feet, this makes it real simple. Just sitting here dragging it. So now I've gotten to the end, and it actually pulled. I started to notice how it was pulling a little bit tighter, so I'd probably gotten right to the top of it. Now I'm gonna head on back and we're gonna pull it out and see what it looks like. All right, so we're here. We've got the well pump out of the hole. Now, an important thing that most people don't realize, and I get this question a lot on my channel, where they put a brand new well pump in and it still doesn't work. Now, the reason why it still doesn't work is because you didn't inspect the wire. So if you look at this, you see all the black manganese that's on my hand, and then you come down here and you see that there's nice pretty color on this wire. Well, the reason why there's color is because that wire was rubbing on something. So you need to look and inspect your wire very, very closely. And we can kind of see an area right here where the tape is broken. So that area was rubbing down in the well. And we got another area here. Hold this, Hudson. We got this area right here. But what's good is I don't see any exposed copper jacketing. So all of the plastic jacket is there and there's no exposed copper. Now, what is important to do on your system is to go ahead and walk down the system with like a couple old rags and try to wipe all this mess off, whatever yours is. It may be red, it may be brown, it may be black, and you need to inspect the wires very, very carefully to make sure you're not doing all this work twice. Because if you have a bad wire and you put a brand new pump on and you put it back down there and it doesn't work, you're gonna be scratching your head and you're gonna be sending me comments wanting to know why. And the reason why is because you'll have a break somewhere in the line and you won't know it, and you'll have to pull it all the way back out to replace it. Now this right here, this was the old used well pump that I had sold her for $100, and it seems to have worked for 5 years, which is absolutely remarkable. And instead of like cutting it here and trying to undo that, we're just going to move up about 6 or 7 feet from all this other mess to where we don't have to worry about it. We're just going to cut it there, and then that's where we're going to hook up our new pump. Now, because this well pump is going at 400 feet, I'd recommend anything after 100 feet that you go ahead and upgrade your head here to a stainless steel or a brass head. Plastic just can't withstand the depth and the pressure and all the torque that these big pumps and these big motors have to throw at it. So we're going to use 2 brand new clamps. We're going to heat our pipe up. We're going to wiggle it on. Now, our wire is going to come out of the top of the pump here, and you don't want the head of the clamps to interfere with the wire. So I like to tell people to keep the head of the clamp on the opposite side of the wiring. That way it can't cut into it or anything crazy like that. Just make sure your clamps are tight. If you feel one pop when you're tightening it, you broke the band. You take it off. Pump leads, we're going to pull those nice and straight. We're going to take our wire here. We're going to pull it nice and straight. And figure out where they're going to meet. And we're going to cut just a little bit extra. We're going to take our paper towel. We're going to mop up all the sweat. We're going to clean our wires, because when we go to do our waterproof connection, we've got to make sure our wires are clean, or it's not going to seal and make a nice waterproof tight splice. And if you see that length right there, those lengths, that's the right amount, about 3/4 of an inch. Now what we're going to do, we're going to hook up our ground wire first. Because this is a 2-wire pump, you don't have that yellow single conductor for your start wire. All you have is 2 hot legs. That's why I recommend 2-wire pumps, because they're just so simple. With a 3-wire pump, you have a starter box and all capacitors and things like that. Some people like them. I just don't. I don't prefer them. There's too many other things that go on in the system that you have to check and you have to be prepared for. 2-wire pumps, everything's built into the pump. Now, typical lifespan of a 100-foot pump. Let's say you have a 1/2 horsepower pump down in the well at 100 foot. You're gonna get 15 to 18 years out of that pump with typical usage. If you have a 3/4 horsepower, 7-gallon a minute pump down at 300 foot, you're gonna get, on average, 11 to 13 years out of it. These pumps in particular, at this depth, with a well that only makes about 3/4 of a gallon a minute, it works under extreme conditions and high pressure, so you're asking a whole lot out of this pump. Ask me, where do you get it? And I don't really know where you can get it. I order it from an electrical wholesaler, and it is rubberized tape, and it is what I use for my waterproof connection. Now, if you're doing it yourself and you got to go to Lowe's, I recommend you buying those the epoxy filled resin heat shrinks. Those are really good. For me, it's easier to carry a roll of this that I can do 25 pumps with, instead of having to have 25 packs of that heat shrink. Tape it up. We're going to make these stationary, keep them flat. You see how they're nice and flat? They're not overlapping one another. Go ahead and cover the clamps. That way we don't get no wiggles, no movement. Then we have this excess here. We're just going to take it and we're going to roll it around the pipe just a little bit. You can never use too much tape. And another big thing is never use duct tape. Never think you're going to go buy that Gorilla Tape or whatever it is and put that down the well. That is not used for water. Duct tape is actually made of cloth, and when you put duct tape in water, it will slowly lose its adhesion, and then all that cloth will go down and it will actually untape itself, and then those big wads of duct tape will go all the way down and they will suck themselves to the intake of this pump, and then you won't know why you don't have water, and you'll pull it out and you'll have this big old wad of duct tape right on the intake of the pump. Now, before we go ahead and drop this pump in the well, we're going to go ahead and sanitize the borehole. Because we drug the pipe all the way across the yard, you know, it can contaminate the water. So we're going to go ahead and use this. This is powdered chlorine. It's kind of like bleach. It's just a whole lot stronger. We're going to do, I think it's 4 ounces for every 100 feet. So that would be 12 ounces. And this bag is 16 ounces. So it's going to be 2/3 of this bag roughly. Hudson's going to go ahead now and install the pump. Right now he's dragging about 250 feet of pipe and wire. It's kind of heavy. Nice and slow. Let the wheels take it. There you go. Walk forward about 10 foot, and then just start pulling it in. Nice and slow, not fast. Got to be a controlled manner. If not, that thing will take off, and the next thing you know, it's done hooked your belt loop, or the wires done come over here and come off of it. And always got to be slow. Smarter, not harder. Now, the reason why it's going in so slow is because the pipe doesn't have water in it. Like a lot of the water came out when we pulled it out. So as he's trying to force it in, the air that's trapped inside the pipe is actually trying to come up out. So it's actually, the air bubbles are floating up out, and any water trapped in the pipe, see, it's gurgling. So that's why it's kind of struggling to go in. If you gave it like 5 minutes and naturally allowed the water to suck into the intake of the pump, then it would slowly pull itself down on in. Go ahead and slide it on in. Just don't let it hit you. Rest it off on the back side, just like that. Okay. Now we'll pop our ratchet strap, put it back in the spot. Okay. Alrighty. And it's helped you install your pump or helped you save money in any way fixing your system, please hit that subscribe button, because always that one person telling me what I should be doing or how I'm doing it wrong. But sometimes you can't do things the way that you want to do because the customer doesn't agree. What I'm doing here is I'm deburring the edge. Only glue that one side. Give it a nice turn. Try to wipe this off as much as can. Don't have primer with me, which it won't matter. The blue glue's got primer built into it. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna lift, and we're gonna push. Give it a little wiggle. Up, you can't get the others wrong. The white can go to black and whatnot and so forth. It just doesn't matter. 240 volts, it's 120 volts on each leg, and it's gonna run. Speed with it. I like to leave a little bit of wire here because sometimes with systems that are this deep, that pipe can stretch, and if the pipe stretches, the wire is going to pull itself down in. So you want to leave just enough to where that has the ability to happen if it's going to happen. We have two houses that are working off this one well that only makes a gallon a minute. So a gallon a minute is 1,400 gallons per day, and the typical household uses 500 to 600. So they're tapping it probably to the limits of what the well can make. So because they're renters, they don't really care about, oh, the well ran dry and the pump's down there and it's gonna burn up. That's probably why I'm here right now. So we're gonna go ahead and install this low pressure cutout switch to where if they do run the well dry, this switch will flip, the well pump will stop running, whether they're using water, whatever the case may be, because this flips when the well becomes dry. So when it flips, the well pump can no longer run, and it gives the system, you know, time enough for them to scratch their head not knowing why, and the well's slowly filling up, and they're just gonna call me, or, you know, eventually they're gonna learn how to reset this. Now there's also a video on my channel of how to reset this switch. It's called a low pressure cutout switch reset. It's very simple, but you'll have to watch that video. Alright. Okay, now, before you turn your system back on, what you need to do, because there's a reason why your well pump died. Typically, the well pump dies is because you had a bad tank and you didn't know it. So the first thing you're going to want to do, knock on your tank. It's supposed to ring like a bell. Now, second thing you're going to do, you're going to take an air pressure gauge like this, and you're going to check your air pressure. So our pressure is 37.6, and it had 37 in it originally, so we're good. Now, we're only good because this was a 40-60 switch. So it needs to be a little bit less than the 40, the on number. Now we're replacing this switch with a low pressure cutout switch, which is a 30-50 switch. So we have to lower the air pressure in our tank to 28 PSI. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. Now, when you test your tank, before you flip the breaker on, before you put water in the system, you have to check the air pressure with no water in the tank, or you're going to get an incorrect reading. Now, if your tank has like 5 pounds of air pressure in it, or 12, or 16, or something like that, you need to go ahead and get a little air compressor, and you need to go ahead and pump the air back up in your tank, or you're going to kill your brand new well pump. A lot of times, people forget to check the tank when they replace their pump. And typically, it's the tank that's bad before the well pump goes bad. Alright, we have our new switch installed. If you need a little help with understanding a pressure switch, there's a video on my channel, but it's real simple to wire. Just a real quick remembrance, keep your colors on the same side. White's on one side, black's on the other, and you can't go wrong. Now, since it's a 30-50 switch, we have 28 psi of air in that now. Now all we have to do now is we turn this on, and then we lift this, and the contacts will close, and the well pump is running. Now I have to sit here and hold this until I get about 30 psi on the system, or if I let go, the contacts will open, and I can actually feel it in my finger slowly taking pressure off of that lever. And you can see the gauge is slowly climbing. Now I'm going to take my finger off of it, and it's actually holding. I can hear water going to one of the houses. It's probably got to fill up all the toilets. They haven't had water for 3 days. Now you remember when we started this and I did an amp draw test and it read 80 and 50 and 20 amps? This is the proper amperage for a 3/4 horse 5 gallon a minute pump. This is what your system should read. Now, we're hearing a little bit of air come in the lines. That was all the air that was out at the well when we did our hookup. Sometimes that air can actually trip the low pressure cutout switch. But it just actually satisfied it, so the pump shut off. We still have good pressure on the system. I just wanted to show you what a pump should read when it reads good. This is the #1 tool you need if you want to tell if your well pump's bad. They're about $80 at Lowe's, but you'll never have to buy another one. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed today's video, coming along with me to pull this deep 400-foot well pump out. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If my videos help you out and you want to send me a donation will be listed in the description below if you want to send me one through PayPal or Venmo, whatever. It's not a requirement, but I do appreciate it. A few people do. Over the period of 4 years, I've gotten probably a dozen tips. But I'm here to save you money and a lot of time and a lot of wasted effort. So thank y'all for watching. Have a good one. I went ahead and replaced the filter element out. There was a whole bunch of sediment in the bottom I had to wash out. But it's just good because when you pull a well pump out, you stir up all the debris in the well. And if you don't have a filter on the system, you really need to open a garden hose and let it run and flush out all that sediment, because you're just going to send it to your toilets and your sinks and your strainers and stuff like that. And if you don't have a filter, then you're going to clog everything up. So when you replace your well pump, replace your filter same time. It's going to get nasty. Or turn a garden hose on and let it run for about 10 minutes. That's just good, you know, to do to flush all that trash out. Once the water gets clean and clear out of the garden hose, then you can shut it off and send it to the house.